Yeah, in the interest of time, I'm going to introduce our presenters, Samuel Cimanuka, and co-presenting with Nancy Biwott, our colleague from IACD based in Kigali, Rwanda. I will ask Nancy to take the floor and lead. And then, of course, later we'll come back and have engagement so that then we can really get to understand what is happening with community development, especially when it comes to matters relating to refugees and displaced populations. Populations that we may not most of the time be able to see, but they still have real issues that need to be sorted out using community development approaches. Welcome, Nancy. Welcome, Samuel.
Thank you very much. We also have a co-facilitator, a third one, Adiel, who will be sharing. She just mentioned she's in Dadaab refugee camp. I'm really excited about this session. Good morning, good evening, from wherever you are. Really excited to be with you here today. Like you've seen, our topic today is community development, the place of refugees and internally displaced persons. That's what we mean by IDPs. Yeah, so Samuel will be sharing a big chunk of this session. Where he's a researcher, he's a localization advocate, and he'll talk a bit about this. And he's also a founder and director of the organization he will speak about, Kalobeyei organization that is based in Kalobeyei refugee camp. Next. Yeah, so this is how our journey will be today. We have had introductions from Dr. Muya. We'll also have Samuel sharing a bit just after a brief introduction from me. We'll have reflections from others in the field. We have Adio in the room, and I think Patricia will also be joining us to share from the Ugandan context. Anyone else will also be invited to just reflect on what Samuel has shared. After that, we'll have discussions. And of course, we will invite Jessica to close for us. So as we begin, we thought we will start with this Menti session. We had a question, and how to enter Menti is menti.com, menti.com. Then you enter this number 1764-6654. If you have your phone or your laptop with you, menti.com. Then this is the code that you enter. For those who are not able to join via Menti, please just type on the chat room, what town or city are you connecting from, number one. And number two, we are really keen to know if you have any questions or expectations for our discussion on the theme today, refugees, IDPs, and community development. We welcome you to chat either on Menti, menti.com, www.menti.com. This is the code you enter, or you can also type in the chat room. We have one response from Melbourne. Most welcome. Most welcome. Anyone else? What city are you joining us from? Please feel free to add on the chat or to type on Menti. Like we said, you go to www.menti.com. And then you enter this number. The code is 1764-6654. Our first question was, what city or town are you connecting with us from? We currently have Melbourne. I'll tap mine, which is Kigali and Rwanda, on the chat room. Yeah, feel free to use the chat as well. Lisa Felicia from Kisii County, Kenya, most welcome. And I see you expect to learn the place of refugees and how they've been settled in the country. Any other expectation from the session that we may have before we move to the next session? The second question was about any expectation or questions you have of the session that we have. We've had one. Any other expectation? Feel free to also use the chat room for that. Yes, so I'll stop screen sharing now so that we can have Jessica back on. Welcome whoever joins us to just on the chat where you're joining us from, number one. And number two, if you have any question or expectation about the discussion themes for today, because we will really definitely love to link what we are sharing with the questions that you have or the expectations you have. Thank you. Okay, so next then we will move on to, we'll progress with this journey that we have today in the interest of time. You're welcome for those who've just joined us. So, sorry, the previous slide, Jessica. Yes, thank you. I know we are all aware, we've heard about the situation we have globally with refugees, and this is just a snippet of the data we have on that. Currently, we have 108.4 million people who've been forcibly displaced. This is global data. The reasons relate to persecution, conflict, violence, human rights violation, and other events in their countries or where they live. I mean, I'm sure you can appreciate that this is a big, big number. Out of all this, 62.5 are internally displaced persons. They are in their countries, but they are displaced. That's what we mean by internally displaced. 5.4 million are asylum seekers. 35.3 million are refugees. And 5.2 million are people in need of international protection. I mean, I'm sure we can all appreciate the magnitude of this issue. Out of the numbers we've spoken about, 43.3 million, 40% are children. Some of them having been born in the camp, in the refugee camps where they've settled, their families have settled. 76% of refugees are hosted in low and middle income countries. Today we'll hear the case, we'll center a lot on Kenya because of the two speakers we have, but we'll also welcome others who are in this space to share their experience and reflections on what is happening in Kenya. Is this something that resonates for their context, for their countries, and from what they know? We will welcome that input from others who work in this space. I'm sure you can see that this is both a local and international community development issue. And I think we've heard a lot about why we've had this crisis globally. We've heard about the issues that our refugees and internally displaced persons are facing. Today, we are trying to look at how are refugees engaging in community development in the spaces where they've settled. How are they taking agency? How are they using their voice to advocate for others in their community? And for that, I welcome Samuel Binja to share his context. Thank you so much. Binja, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nancy. And thanks to everyone who has dedicated this time to come and share this momentum with us. Allow me to start with the introduction. My name is Samuel Binja Cimanuka. I'm Congolese by nationality, currently living in Kenya as a refugee since 2017 due to some persecutions that I faced, and I had to seek for protection in a foreign country. The way it has been presented, Samuel Binja is a localization advocate, refugee independent researcher, and as well as the founder and director of Kalobeyei Initiative for Better Life, which is a refugee led organization. Kenya has been hosting refugees for now 3 decades, and since 1992. And today in Kenya, we have more than 500,000 refugees and asylum seekers who are coming from various countries, basically the majority coming from Somalia, because Dadaab is one of the largest camps in the world. And it is located in Kenya, with 80% of refugees being from Somali community. And in Kenya, we have 3 contexts of refugees. We have Dadaab refugee camp, we have Kakuma refugee camp, and we have urban area. In Kakuma refugee camp, we have an extension of Kalobeyei settlement, which was opened in 2016 with the main aim of socio-economic integration of refugees and host community members. Kalobeyei itself is hosting more than 50,000 refugees since 2016, and is where I'm calling from, is where I am based. So that is about the context. We can go to the next slide. Now, allow me to speak about Kalobeyei Initiative for Better Life. But before I go with Kalobeyei Initiative for Better Life, we can go to the next slides. Kindly. Thank you. Before I speak about Kalobeyei Initiative for Better Life, allow me to go and share the context of RLOs in Kenya. In Kenya, we have more than 100 refugee-led organizations with various capacities. And these refugee-led organizations are working in various areas, in various thematic areas, some being focused on employability, others in education, livelihood, and many other sectors. And I will focus on the work of Kalobeyei Initiative for Better Life. Kalobeyei Initiative for Better Life is a refugee-led organization that was founded in 2018 with the purpose of giving education space to refugees. Kalobeyei Initiative for Better Life mission is to provide scalable skills for both refugees and host community members for them to access decent work and as well as to be able to contribute to sustainable community development. With the vision of ending dependence through education, we still believe that education plays a key role for refugees. We still believe that education plays a key role for refugees and being one of the sustainable livelihood opportunities. Since 2018, Kalobeyei Initiative has served more than 2,000 refugees and host community, and we work in 4 thematic areas. We work in education. In education, we have early childhood development program, and also we have change makers program, which we work in partnership with Amala Education. We also have livelihood that is diverted in digital employability space. We work with Cohere, which is an international organization, is a charity organization. We also work in SRHR, and we also work in inclusive protection. All of these interventions have made us to reach more than 2,000 beneficiaries or participants in our programs. And this shows that if Kalobeyei Initiative in 5 years can reach more than 2,000 refugees, we have refugee-led organizations that have been there for 10, 15 years. It means they have reached even 10,000 refugees. Because already I've shared a concept of the work that we do, we need also to look at what are the importance. Why should we involve? Why should we consider refugee-led organizations when it comes to matter of community development? And for this to happen is that refugee-led organizations have been in operation for many years now, and they deserve to be considered. And for refugee-led organizations to be really able to deliver about their services, there are some commitments that should be done by the global leaders, makers, and community development practitioners. And one of it is localization. Refugee-led organizations are not yet being given the value as stakeholders or people who are bringing solutions on the table. And NGOs, funders, and so other people are not yet able to shift the power to the local actors. While working with refugee-led organizations, first of all, it reduces the cost, and also it enhances the sustainability of the actions that we are making. And when it enhances the sustainability of it, and working already or directly with refugee-led organizations, it enhances also the refugee participation on a decision-making table, and also influence the policies, which when it influences the policy, it advances the local advocacy or the refugee advocacy, because once we participate equally, we are able to bring the perception of your community, which we need to look at. despite the milestone that refugee-led organizations are making in this space of development, refugee-led organizations are facing a lot of challenges, which as well are opportunities for other people like donors and funders, but also community development practitioners and researchers, which is in Kenya, we all know that refugees are restricted. Refugee-led organizations are restricted on matter of registrations. And we are so much happy that the new act of refugees in Kenya now allows refugees to be, refugee-led organizations to be registered, although the regulations are still being developed. Apart from that as well, refugee-led organizations are committed to serve no matter the challenge of having limited and restricted and also short-term funding. It's very hard for refugee-led organization to have the same team for 5 years, because you just get a project that is only for 6 months or 1 year, and that project does not have maybe administration or any aspect of growth or sustainability for the organization itself, which is a challenge. Refugee leaders who are also serving in refugee-led organizations, they are also have barriers when it comes to capacity, because remember that refugees are running these organizations not because they are so much qualified, but because they feel there is a gap, and the less skills they have, they can be able to deliver, they can be able to support the SGDs. But now it's reached a point whereby refugees are facing challenges when it comes to capacity strengthening and also capacity development. Funders' policies are quite exclusive, because we realize that the funders will say, okay, we want to shift power to refugees, we want to work with refugee-led organizations, but they don't look at the aspect of restrictions and regulations in the host countries. Like in Kenya today, a lot of refugee-led organizations, they don't have registration certificate, but all the funders will still stick on, if you are not registered, we can't work with you and so on. But we believe that if the policies could be flexible, there is something that could be could change, and there is a bigger impact that refugee-led organizations can be able to deliver in their communities. Apart from that as well, refugee leaders are still, the way I talked before, refugee leaders are still considered as beneficiaries and not as stakeholders. And this led to NGOs, which is international non-governmental organizations, to only use refugees as casual workers and not give refugee-led organizations the respect as partners, as stakeholders. Refugees-led organizations are mostly used in identification, mapping, mobilization of beneficiaries. But when it comes to full implementation, refugee-led organizations are not considered. And this makes a lot of problems. Refugee leaders and many refugees, they are facing also issue of sustainable livelihood. And this makes, no matter being a director at a refugee-led organizations, because of restricted funding, they are not supporting administrations, we are forced to go back and work as incentive workers with NGOs. And with a bigger surprise is that when you work as an incentive worker, no matter your level of education, you are just paid an average of $70 per month. Then we ask ourselves, how can someone survive with only $70 per month? Remember that refugees are getting only like a food aid, which is the equivalent of between, in Kakuma is $5 per month in cash, and in Kalobeyei is $14 per month. How can you survive with that amount? But refugee leaders are still committed, because out of the $70 per month, they're still committed to give a certain percentage to the organization to be run. And those are kind of the challenges. And another challenge is that refugees are facing a lot of policies, a lot of regulation based on countries. While refugee community is one community, there is a lack of harmonized refugee policies in the host countries, which also limits the potential of refugees, which also limits the potential of refugees to fully contribute to the community development. And already here there is all opportunity for funders to come and see the potential of refugees and work with refugees. But this can be only done if funders can fully engage refugees, and funder can, or donors or any other stakeholders can be able to come and listen to refugees. And listening to refugees has various components. We have which is my call to action. First, one of them is to support and share opportunities of refugees and their leaders. What we mean is that refugees, I talked about, they're lacking possibilities to attend the global forums because of documentations and because they are not informed about those opportunities. But remember that when refugees attend the high-level conferences, they come back with the feedback, and those feedbacks help them to reshape or reorganize their ideas. So we need to look at sharing opportunities with refugees. The second of them is that RLOs requires flexible funding. When I'm talking about flexible funding, is that to give RLOs funding that allows them to grow, allows them to scale up. Flexible funding allows refugee-led organization to invest in infrastructure, to invest in equipment that can enable and attract more investors and also more donors to come, because they will find that this RLO is already well established. For example, when you have flexible funding, you can invest in policy development. You can invest in strategic planning. You can invest in capacity strengthening of your staff and other volunteers. You can invest in infrastructure, equipment. So this will attract more donors and also make a refugee-led organization to be able to secure many funding. And finally, we request for meaningful partnership. When we talk about the meaningful partnership, is that I've talked about NGOs, funders, they only use refugees to for mobilization and identification. But meaningful partnership comes when refugee-led organizations are considered from the design of the project. So to make sure that the project is coming from the community itself, because refugee-led organizations are the community representatives. So when they are considered for ideation, design up to the evaluation of the project, that is what you call meaningful partnership for organizations and other for refugee-led organizations. So with those few remarks, because of the interest of time, allow me to get back to Nancy. And before I get back to Nancy, I want to recognize and acknowledge the efforts done by my team, the Kalobeyei Initiative for Better Life team, to make sure all of this have been put together. This is not coming from me, it's coming from the entire team that I've consulted and many other RLOs which are based in Kakuma refugee camp and Kalobeyei settlement. Thank you so much, and back to you, Nancy.
Thank you so much for that strong call to action and for giving us a bit of the context of what's happening in the space, what you're working towards, and the challenges that you're facing. As we reflect on this, I would like to welcome Monica to share a bit on the work she does in Monicado. Monica is an urban refugee. She's based in Nairobi, but she still works a lot with the Dadaab refugee settlement in Kenya as well. Welcome, Monica. Please share your reflections on the sessions we've just had. I believe we are on slide 11, Jessica. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so very much, everyone. And thank you so very much, Benjamin, for the amazing presentation. I go by the name Monica, or Adiu, Achil, that's my name. I'm born to South Sudanese parents, was born in Kakuma refugee camp. I've been living in the refugee camp my entire life. And I'm now in Dadaab as of today. And also I'm the founder of Monicado. Monicado, it's a refugee-led organization that deals with education, resource for education, and then also help us refugees on the application processes. And we also do economical empowerment, whereby we train women and youth on basic entrepreneurial skills. and source for funding or grants so that they can be able to have or start up their own ventures or small ventures in the camp, just to help them become self-reliant. And the last activity we do is advocacy, where we advocate for women we do women empowerment, a lot of GBV, and also early child marriages and all other things that are involving in the advocacy work. So far, we've been working with FiliMaid, UNHCR, Humanity Inclusion, and most of the UNHCR refugee agencies. So my reflection on the other laws and other organizations in refugee inclusion is, I believe, with my experience, I believe what Sam was saying is that there's so many challenges that refugees are facing in and out every day. Regarding the registration, I know there's a lot of control that are being, or a lot of measurement that are being taken by the UNHCR and the government of Kenya to be able to control refugees. We also have issues like funding. I believe with funding, refugees are people who are educated. Some of them are capacitated. For instance, for me, I hold a master's. I'm doing my master's right now in JKUAT. That is one of the best and public university in Kenya. So if given an opportunity, I believe I can be able to deliver a good service to the community that I'm living with. And with that, you can just imagine somebody graduating from university, going back to the camp, work and an incentive, being paid below $70. This is somebody that have gone through the education system. This is somebody who has an experience. This is somebody that have skills, you know? So it become a challenging situation whereby it's also demoting people motivation. It's demoting people reasoning of going to university, because you feel like, why should I be able to attend higher education or tertiary education? Well, in real sense is that after education or after attending my tertiary education, I'll still get back to the camp, you know? But if there's a way the government can be able to give out more job opportunities, with the recent laws and enacted laws in Kenya, it's allowed refugees to work, yes, but with it's called a Class M work permit. But this Class M work permit is also coming with a lot of restriction, you know, so it's become an issue. With that also, I also believe that there is need for us, the refugees, because I always say that my community is my responsibility. So I think, I believe there's a need for us, the refugees, to take up and fill the gap that are being left by the humanitarian actors. Let's take an example of what happened during COVID-19. COVID-19, most of these humanitarian actors, they left the field, they went back to their families, but we were here in the community. We were able to take the responsibility, work from our community, and do good things for our community. For instance, for us, the Monicado, we made 2,000 face masks and 3,000 bar soaps, and contributed or distributed to the community. This is one thing that we did during COVID-19. And it's very clear that localization should be implemented in most of these refugees camps. Let's say in all the refugees camps, because the NGOs or other organizations want us to depend on them, whereby we have the skill. We want to make sure that the skills and the knowledge and experience that we have should be put into an action, and it also should be put into work, because I felt like there's so much that needs to be done in the refugee camp. So most of the time when I ask people, I always tell them, like, which way do you think that refugees themselves can be able to develop their community? What tools do we need as refugees to make sure that our community are on the next level, so that we can be able to reach where other communities are, or where other individuals are? If you compare refugees community and the host community, there's a very big gap. And what should be done to make sure that we bring that gap, or we cover that gap, and also making sure that refugees that let's reach somewhere that are a level that they should be able to act or work and also do things or integrate easily in the community. Yeah. So these are the things that I think most of people always like wondering, and also about the transition from education to job. What should be done to bridge that transition gap? So I think there's a lot, and also trust issues. When it's come to funding for RLOs, there's a lot of issues. There's a big problem there, because it's only an organization called Women, it's called UN Women's something that give funding to refugees-led organization directly into their account. Most of these people have gone through education, they have registered, because I believe if you have no qualification, there's no way that Kenyan government can register you as an RLO, never, unless you are qualified, because you have to go for a lot of interviews, you have to make sure that you have all the documents, you have to make sure you pass through the law, and the laws does not favor anyone. It's either the truth way or there's no way for you. So if the Kenyan government are able to trust us, give us the license or the permit to be able to conduct or work in the community. Why is it so hard for these funders to be able to channel the funding to the refugee-led organizations directly instead of passing through the UNHCR and other agencies? I feel like there's so many things that need to be done. And it's upon the funders or the donors right now to be able to speak and also advocate for something. As much as you're also advocating for it, I also feel that the funders or the donors also have a voice in it, because it's them who have all the power. As we're just saying, we're just advocating, but if it is not implemented by the donors, then it's like we're doing zero work at the end of the day. So for now, I think that is how I will have input, or the input that I can put, or I can say that I can actually input. And then the last thing I will want to talk about is about the number of the refugees being registered daily in the camp. For instance, I am in the Dadaab right now. We're having so many refugees from Somalia coming into this camp because of maybe a drought and climate issues and so many things that are happening. So many things that are happening. So I believe if there's a way international communities, donors, and other stakeholders should be able to increase funding for these refugees to be able to register and also have an access to basic need. For instance, WFP have cut off their funding, whereby they used to have something called Baba Chakula. Baba Chakula, it's a voucher that allowed you to have to get vegetables in the market, because they don't provide vegetables in the ration where the food distribution, they don't have vegetables. So with that one, it used to be 500, that is equivalent to $4, but now they have cut it into, I think, $2. Is it $2? Something equivalent to $2. So you can imagine if you're getting $2 per month for you to be able to buy that vegetables, what sense does it make, or what is it communicating? So I believe if people are to donate things, let's donate something that is genuine, and let's work with refugee-led organizations so that we can be able to not just put some money or invest in something that cannot be sustained. Because I've seen so many projects being done here, but at the end of the day, there's no sustainability. These are our community, we are in the community, and we want to make sure that the community that we are living in should benefit from services that are dedicated to them. Thank you so very much, Nancy. I know I can talk a lot.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the impassioned plea and advocacy for localization. Thank you so much to both of you for sharing the good work you're doing despite the challenges that exist. I see Patricia Nangiro, who was to share on the Ugandan context, is not here, but I've seen there is another participant who say they're able to share. If we don't have any other person who works with refugees and IDPs, please let's move to the next session. Jessica? Yes. So I thought we could all have a discussion on these 3 points. Then after that, we can come back and just raise the questions we have in this on what has been shared and the comments we have on what has been shared. We can have 5 minutes of just discussions in our breakout rooms. So we'll have Monica and Binja in those rooms in case you want one-on-one question and answer session. After 5 minutes, let's come back and just have a group discussion on some of what has been shared and just a group reflection as well on that.
Sure, I'll
advise us.
I'll create the breakout rooms just now. I'll stop sharing my screen. And
No problem. Yeah, okay, then we can definitely have some discussion. So I see Jules who is saying we are facing a conflict of interest with NGOs implementing activities in the camps. Jules, what kind of conflict of interest? Is it because of the donors? There are few, but the needs are many and the organizations are many. Second problem is untrustworthy, but only for here who is transferring power funds and everything through capacity strengthening. Hope through these advocacy sessions will transform this perception. So Jules, is this more about the localization and the importance of localization? Feel free to just speak and share with us. Liz had also asked about the place.
Thank you very much. I'm Jules.
Oh, okay. Jules, yes, please.
So I hope that it is my view, because what we are living in Kakuma is very terrible. I remember we have met with some of decision makers from different NGOs who normally say that we don't have the capacity of getting fund. Even if they transfer fund to us, we will not be able to manage the fund as they expect. But through the COIA fund that we are receiving, that we are getting, we are now showing them that we are able to do, we are able to manage fund and showing that the impact of the fund that we receive. So for us, it is like we are facing a conflict of interest. Like because I'm from Voice for Disabled People Association, in short, VDPA, whereby we are helping, we are assisting persons with disability in Kakuma in many aspects. So sometimes we go and we ask support from some NGOs who are also assisting persons with disability, but they never support us. Even having a capacity building training, it is also different. But like now we are implementing a project called inclusive education, whereby we are supposed to go to the schools and assisting the group that we call inclusive group. The group are composed by learners with and without disability to play together and doing everything together. But it is like we are still doing it in a secret way, whereby we have sent many emails to LWF, the implementer of education in Kakuma. We have sent emails to ask for a go-ahead to get that opportunity to do our activities well in a proper way. But they refuse, they don't respond to the emails, and we don't know why. Because we have realized that they are now fearing that the work that we will do, the impact that we will make through that project, it may create a conflict. Like they can face challenges because learners will not accept them like the way that we are implementing it. That is a view that we see. It is a view that we are seeing here, and it is a way we are living in Kakuma. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for sharing on the localization and some of this. I mean, I think it's very powerful what you've said about the voice and the agency that the refugee-led organizations are taking, and it's not like some are intimidated, some do not welcome that, but that you're still making some progress towards that. I'm really grateful. Since I met, I think the first people I met were Adiel, who works for who is with the Tertiary Refugee Network, which is the first time I got to hear about the refugee-led organizations. And I hope this is something that we are learning, that we can actually direct our funding and our support and our engagement and our capacity building initiatives directly to the refugee-led organizations. We now have people saying nothing for us without us. And I think that's what I'm hearing from what you shared a few minutes ago. So we have our discussion, our groups ready, and we have 3 questions. We are encouraging group 1 to discuss, and I'll share it on the chat, the 3 questions that we have. Group 1 will be looking at the first question, just discussing it. Group 2 will look at question 2, and group 3 will look at question 3. Let's just interrogate some of these concepts, share our own reflections and learnings, so that when we come back, we can close with the key reflections from the groups, but also we have a Q&A session, because I know some of us have questions that we would like to be addressed. Some would like to propose partnerships, so we welcome all that. Over to you, Jessica. Welcome, everyone. The 10 minutes went so fast. Yeah, I'm sure we can see the questions that we were discussing. Even if we had just initial discussions, we are really keen to hear how far you went, what the key highlights were from the discussions you had. Just checking in with group 1. Is there anything we in community development need to do to shift focus and power to refugee-led organizations? What were any key highlights from your discussions that you want to share? Any of you? Group 1? Anyone from that team?
I believe Danielle can share the reflections that we had in group 1.
Okay, thank you, Benjamin. Patricia is the one who is presenting for us. Patricia, you are here.
Well, Daniel, maybe I'll just mention 1 or 2 things that I didn't know I was the one taking notes, so I didn't put down the points. But I think one of the key things that came out strongly was the issue of advocacy. Like there has to be really sustained advocacy in the area of shifting the support to refugees, because when there's displacement, people move in communities, in groups, and there is still need to continue organizing and mobilizing for development, even in areas where they are being hosted. So advocacy is very critical. As community actors, we still have to continue that advocacy to ensure that refugees are really part of the ongoing process, even in countries where they are hosted. And then the other issue that came up was the decision-making, the involvement of refugees in all decisions that are affecting them. Like they have to be at the table of whatever decisions are being made regarding community development in the areas that they are in. I think those were the main ones that came out critically, but the members can add on as well in case I've missed out. And maybe I could also add one, although I joined late initially. I think the other issue should also be about looking at the policy frameworks of different countries. What agendas do they have for refugees in terms of the policies that they are putting in place? Because there are some countries that have adapted the community agenda a long time ago. Like, for example, I'll give an example of Uganda, for example. the community agenda was long adapted, and it's considered one of the most progressive globally that a number of other actors could learn from. The policies should be in position to allow for refugee organizing and capacity strengthening and all that, so that they are able to really contribute strongly to the community development agenda, even in countries where they are being hosted from, and also back when they get back home. Yeah. Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Patricia. I think that's a summary of what our group discussed, and what is coming through is that refugees needs to be given an equal seat in the countries where they are located. We treat them as visitors for too long. I remember 1993, I did some work in a refugee camp in the northern part of Kenya, and those people are still with us so many years down the line. Are they still guests? So I think we can go to the next group in the interest of time, Nancy.
Thank you so much for those reflections. Patricia, welcome, and I hope we get a chance for you to share a few, maybe 2 comments or reflections on the topic from Uganda. You've shared about the community engagement. It will be great to hear your reflections at some point before we finish this. Thank you for joining us. So group 2, any reflections on the questions you are handling?
Hello.
Hello, Lundo, please share, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I'm Lundo. I was in group 2, so we were a bit confused. We didn't have the question to talk about it, to discuss better. But based on my understanding or my thought is that, first of all, we have to believe in the power that RLO, they have among the refugee community. And something very important is really to see how this RLO can be collaborating with the government. For example, the work that our friends are doing in the camp, trying to share the report with the government authority, to try to involve the government authority and also see the impacts that the refugees are doing for other community, for other refugees. For example, myself, I came here, I'm from Congo. I came here, and the program in Congo was French, but I get to learn the English course here in Kakuma refugee camp through a refugee organization called SAVIC, which was teaching English to the refugees, and it was a free training. The same way they are doing in Kalobeyei with the initiative for better life. The same way they are doing with others. So I think there is a very great impact those organizations, those CBOs are making in the refugee context, because they meet us, they meet the refugee directly. They understand the community very well. So I think it can be very good to try, to partner those RLO with also with the government, especially I'm talking about the Kenyan government, to know that these guys are doing great work, and also to try to support their members, to try to support them to do a great job. Those who don't have legal document, they come in to assist them to get legal document. I think that could be very, very good. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lundo, for sharing your personal reflections from the session. Group 3, any highlights, key highlights that came out from your discussions? They were highlighting what skills or resources do we need to support successful partnerships between RLOs and other community development practitioners and organizations.
Yes, okay, let me be very brief because of time. We talked about the resources we need for partnership in relation to refugees and IDPs. And the first one is finances, of course, as a key resource. But for us, we did not just look at the finances, but how to mobilize these finances locally, regionally, and internationally. How, as community development practitioners, we need to have the skills to even write the funding proposals, because majority doesn't have those skills. That's why we find ourselves into the consultancies, asking for different consultancies to help us write funding proposals. And of course, human resource now is very critical as far as forming partnership is concerned. Then we also considered information as a key resource, information on different laws and the policies for different countries, and also the information about the numbers. How many refugees do we have? How many people have been displaced? When? What led to that? So that information itself, because you always say information is power. So that information itself, we need to consider it very powerful and as a key resource. Above all, the most important thing that we emphasized is actually on how to support inclusion of refugees and IDPs on the very most constrained environment. You see the refugees and IDPs, they find themselves in a very constrained environment where even the host communities themselves, they don't have the capacities to accommodate them. So how do we find inclusion in that? So as we look about, as we analyze about the resources, we need also to look at the aspect of inclusion so that all those aspects can be very, very accommodative. Thank you.
Thank you so much for giving us those snapshots of the discussions from the different groups. We have around 10 minutes before we pass the mic back to Daniel and Jessica. Is there any question? I think I just want to welcome Patricia for 1 minute to share any reflections from the Ugandan side of things, apart from what she's shared about the community engagement. Then I welcome any questions we have from members before we have final comments from Samuel and from Adeu, then give the mic back to IACD. Thank you so much for what you've shared, the snapshot of the situation. We've had some recommendations. I really want to appreciate what we've learned and the generosity of the people in the room that have shared their own personal experience, some of which are really painful and have been difficult. Thank you for sharing. Patricia, a snapshot of the Ugandan context.
Okay, thank you. I'll just give maybe broadly a few insights from the Uganda context. Now, for Uganda's case, currently hosting about 1.3 million refugees, and most of them, especially coming from South Sudan, are located in the West Nile region of the country, and those ones coming from the DRC, Burundi, and all the Great Lakes countries are located around the southwestern part of the country. So it's like they are located in areas that are very close to home, that probably in the case that they need to return back, it's easier to cross back home and then maybe return. That is how they are located. But what is key for Uganda's case is that the policy framework for refugee response in Uganda and displaced populations really looks at the fact that from experience, because the country has been hosting refugees for so long, just like I think Abdul or someone gave a point that they've been in Kenya for over 20-something years. So I think it's from that experience that informed the act, the Refugees Act that Uganda developed, that looks at refugees as part of the communities within the country. So you find that when refugees arrive, normally the government has discussions with the communities and the refugee agency to mobilize resources from the community, like especially land, encourage Ugandans to give land for the government to host refugees. And I think that is one critical area that helps refugees to quickly settle in and feel like they are really part of the whole country process. And then when you look at the allocations of land, it also follows a line that there has to be self-reliance at some point, because there cannot always be resources to be like humanitarian response may not be sustained for so long. It might be for some period of emergency, and then when emergencies end, what next? So the government ensures that the lands that are allocated, for example, at least have an additional area that someone can be able to do some simple basic agriculture, but also the local communities that are hosting refugees are encouraged to also allow refugees, for example, to hire out land, that even in acres that they can be able to produce more food even for the market. And I've seen it because I've worked in the refugee response for quite some time as well. I've seen that happen. And then also you look at the services that are provided. Both refugees and Ugandans access the same services, the health facilities, the schools, the markets and all that. One of the considerations that they put across when they are allocating refugees in an area is which services are available within such an area, so that if there is need to increase, it doesn't become so constraining to the government and also the humanitarian actors. There's a situation where the existing resources are utilized, but also there has to be some kind of additional support. But also you find that the refugees are really free to move. They are free to move, even leave the camp and go and find those ones who can afford. They can leave the camp and go and find other better areas of abode within the country. It may be in the nearby trading centers or towns like that. And that has been working. We've seen that a lot. Those who come with some resources, they are able to do that. But also
thank you so much, Patricia. Yeah. Yes, for sharing that. Sorry to cut you off in the interest of time, just because we need to give some time still to IACD and to our speakers. Thank you for giving us that snapshot. So we've had, I think I've seen 5 questions, most of which have been responded to. What is the place of refugees and how have they been resettled in Kenya? From Liz. Challenges refugees are facing was a question Esther asked that has been addressed. Role of social capital in resettlement of IDPs. How can they tap into their skills for development? I think that has been mentioned, as well as the challenges around that. We have a question on what is the role of education and skills training in empowering refugees to be self-reliant. Oh, I actually think Binja also mentioned that it's very critical. Then there was a question, how can community development techniques help in supporting refugee and IDP inclusion? There was also another one on how can community development initiatives address the mental and psychological needs of refugees and IDPs? I think I welcome any of us to speak on those, if anyone has feedback on that. Then we go to Emmanuel before we have final comments from our 2 speakers. Any feedback on the 2 key questions? One came from Lisa. I want to know how community development initiatives address the mental and psychosocial needs of refugees and IDPs. I wanted to check with Binja and Adiel and Patricia and others, Lundo. Is there any mental health support for the refugees in the camp? If you can just give a brief 1-line comment. Are there organizations supporting this?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, my apologies. Yeah. So we have organizations supporting that. For instance, during COVID-19 in Kenya, we had a little bit of another challenge, that is teenage pregnancy, that almost 40, it was reported like almost 40,000 girls got pregnant during the COVID-19. So the host community decided like they should have their own way of doing things or jump in and fill up the gap. So we, the Monicado, decided like, okay, this is our chance also to fill up the gap in the community. So we actually documented this type of girls because they were actually girls from the age of 12 to 17. So what we're able to do is connect these girls, give them psychological support by connect them with a Red Cross. We have Red Cross, they offer such services. We have the DRC is Danish Refugee Council. They do that services in the camp, and it's actually for free. The problem now in the camp is people have, I believe these things, it's all about trust also. So I believe in this camp and also, yeah, trust. In this camp, they are being offered, but the problem that I've seen so far is that people are not aware of what this is actually. So less people, like so many cases of people committing suicide, people doing other funny things because they have no idea what their mental status are, what are they supposed to do, and whom should they run to, because I believe with information they can be able to help out. So these are the things that are happening in the camp. And yes, the service is there, but most of these UN agents, they just come sit in the office, wait for the civilian or wait for the client, to which most of these clients, they're not aware of what they're supposed to do or how these services are being run. So it's a big challenge as well. Yeah, thank you.
So there's need also for awareness on the availability of these services, yeah? So Emmanuel, brief question before we close?
Yes,
Emmanuel,
thank you.
yes?
Briefly, I just wanted to give a brief perspective from Ghana. In the early 1990s, during the Liberian Civil War, the government of Ghana allocated space around the outskirts of the capital to the Liberian refugees who were displaced. It is named Bujumbura Refugee Camp. That settlement is still available or is still being used by our brothers and sisters from Liberia. Right now, we have other West African nationals who have also joined that community. Now, I think all the key issues that have been raised are relevant and they play out clearly even in the Bujumbura situation. When we create refugee settlements, I think that community development practitioners should move in quickly to help organize these communities, to ensure that these people are properly integrated into these new communities that they have joined, and also rehabilitated where necessary. Over the period that Bujumbura has existed, there have been varying accounts of how our brothers and sisters have, for instance, lived and conducted themselves and all those things. On the whole, it has been all nice, but sometimes due to the lack of proper community organization, and it was also mentioned, the framework of perhaps the hosting community, the resources available and other related factors, you realize that if we do not organize the community well, sometimes our refugees create problems for the host country. And this is not to, cast a slur on our brothers and sisters or something. But for instance, there were times where there were serious issues. It became a hotspot for nefarious activities, robberies and all those kinds of things and things. For instance, we know that even though it is a refugee settlement, we even have many Ghanaians who have also gone to live around the enclave and all those things. And so, for instance, if we want to deal with issues of security and all those things, it has to be a general issue. We cannot say that, it is because we have refugees, that's why these things are happening. But then the point we are making is that how effectively did we organize the place? Yes, the government of Ghana did well by providing the place. But
thank you, Emmanuel, for that reflection. We really appreciate that. I like the idea of how are we organizing as community development practitioners, as governments, when we have refugees join our communities, so that we work together and we reduce conflict, because where resources are limited, we will have conflict. We may likely have nefarious activities, like you say. So how are we supporting and strengthening the communities to deal with this so that we don't experience that? Thank you for that perspective from the West African side of point of view. So thank you so much. And I think you've sort of addressed the question, how can community development techniques help support refugees and IDP inclusion? By moving in quickly as soon as this happens so that we have cohesion in these communities. Thank you so much. Any final words? 1 second from you.
Can I add?
Patricia,
Can I
1
add?
second, please. 1 second.
Yes, I think one other thing that community development actors can do is also to set up leadership structures for the refugees, like making sure that the leadership structures are taking into consideration the inclusion of women, young people in the whole process, because each of them have issues that they need to deal with. I think in one of the refugee camps I saw in Uganda here, there was really, you see women representation in the structures had really gone high. And then it was easy to support all these community groups. Like you have the women safe spaces where they have those psychosocial sessions happening weekly. You have the youth centers where young people meet and discuss all these issues of reproductive health and all that. So they were all well supported in that. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Patricia, for that. So sorry that we are running out of time when we are getting amazing reflections from all over the continent as well. Final word, Binja, 1 second. Binja, are you here?
Yes. Yes, thank you so much, Nancy, for this opportunity. And I just thank everyone who joined us in this call. And I want just to request to the community development practitioners to emphasize on the policy making by trying to avoid intermediaries in funding, because RLOs requires direct funding for them to grow, but as well as to remind our audience that we have already the work that refugees researchers have done so far. And if you want to learn about refugee-led organizations in Kenya, here you find the link, and I request Nancy to share these slides with everyone to be able to understand the impact of refugee-led organizations in Kenya. But this report is an overall of refugee-led organizations in East African community. Thank you so much, Nancy, and back to you.
Thank you, Binja. 1 second for Dieu.
Thank you so very much, everybody, for your time and also listening to us. I wanted to say that these refugees issues are not only meant for refugees, but it's everybody, because you never know what will happen to you tomorrow. It was just recently that Ukraine they were very well established, but now if you look at the situation, it's very bad. So nobody knows what will happen tomorrow. So let's keep on talking, advocating, and also helping these refugees to be able to feel they're accepted and their voice is being put into consideration. And also let's push for the donors or funders to be able to help the refugee-led organization. These are the only people who knows what community or what are some of the challenges that community are facing and how they can be able to come up with a solution, since they're from the same community in the community. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Collaboration is the way, right? And inclusion. So over to you, Daniel and Jessica. Sorry for taking your 5 minutes into 2. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Nancy, for leading us, and thank you, Samuel, for leading the discussion, and for all these colleagues working in the refugee and displaced person space for coming up with the quite real lived experiences, reflections. So grateful for making this such a wonderful space to interact, and as it's just been indicated, we never know what is going to happen tomorrow, and these are discussions we need to be alive to, so that then we can understand what is happening. And the call, as it has come through, is there should be nothing about any kind of group without their participation. And so there should be nothing about refugees without them being on the table. Thank you very much. And again, I want to appreciate all of us for making time to participate in this 29th edition of the IACD Sub-Saharan Africa Webinar series. Just a number of announcements going forward. Of course, we have the next edition, second Wednesday of August. The focus will be on children in special need. Again, another population that is likely not to be heard and not to be on the table. And so again, that's what we're going to be discussing in August 9th. Then members of IACD who are present, we have our annual general meeting coming up on 26th. I hope you have registered. We have already sent out the Eventbrite link. If you register, then you'll be able to get your link to join in the annual general meeting. It is our association. It is us. It is our voice that is going to make a difference going forward. We are actually coming to the end of the strategic plan and getting to the new one or preparing the next one. Coming to the AGM will be very useful. You can make some contribution going forward. That would be very welcome. August 26th, invitations have already been sent out in Eventbrite. Kindly register. And those of our colleagues who have joined us and you are not members of IACD, this is just part of what we do. Consider joining us. If you go again to iacdglobal.org, you can come across a very friendly page for joining us. It doesn't take long. And just you can share just the link for joining IACD for those of our colleagues who may not be members of IACD. That's where it is, iacdglobal.org. The other comment I want to make, again, in the interest of time, is if you touch me, we have started country networks. Ghana is already leading in putting together a network of IACD members in Ghana, and of course they will bring in more of the community development practitioners on board. And Uganda is already starting, and we encourage them again to continue putting together that network in Uganda. We have colleagues from Uganda. Get in touch with your colleagues, put together a strong network. You can have a forum like this one going on and discussing matters only Ugandan in a space that then makes sense for you. The other announcement quickly I want to make is that we have just come from the World Community Development Conference in Darwin, and the next World Community Development Conference is going to be in 2025. The venue is going to be announced in due course, but next year there's no World Community Development Conference. That means then we have an opportunity as a region to have something that is homegrown, an African, Sub-Saharan African regional conference of sorts. We have already some discussion in our wall. We'll make that one a lot more alive, and be on the lookout for the discussion so that you can see what is it we can do in between as we wait for the World Community Development Conference 2025. So thank you very much. Jessica, thanks for hosting us.
A quick question, Doctor. I wanted to ask, because I can see students can join IACD for free for, I think, 4 years. What about refugee-led organizations? Is there any space for those?
That's something we can discuss. Okay,
thank you.
That's a special population. I think now we can raise it up. We have a meeting later today. I think I'll pick it up now with the IACD leadership. It's good that we have raised it up because that's a group that is in need of consideration. Thank you very much, and we'll communicate through the IACD channels.
Thank you.
Any other comment? Thank you so much for indulging us, and we have overrun our time by 4 minutes. Have a blessed day, and Jaya, always a pleasure to have you from so far with us. Thank you very much, and be blessed.
Thank you.